Today, we're going to trace the incredible story of a single powerful idea. How do you make polluters pay? This is the story of the global carbon markets, a 30-year-long experiment to fight climate change, filled with huge ambitions, some pretty tough setbacks, and a whole lot of reinvention along the way. And really, it all comes back to this one big question. For decades, the world's been wrestling with this: how do you create a real financial reason to cut greenhouse gas emissions? How do you actually put a price tag on pollution in a way that truly drives change? Okay, so here's our roadmap. We're going to start with the very first attempts at carbon offsetting, then dive into the huge experiment that was the Kyoto Protocol. From there, we'll see how the private sector carved its own path, which brings us to the modern era of the Paris Agreement and its super important rulebook, Article 6. And we'll wrap up with a look at what the whole market landscape looks like today. So where did this all kick off? Well, the idea of a market for pollution didn't just pop up out of nowhere. It started with some really pioneering and actually pretty simple ideas. You know, the very first spark was back in the late 80s. An American company actually funded a tree planting project in Guatemala to offset its own emissions. It was a brand new idea. And that simple concept planted the seed for private registries in the 90s, and then the real game changer in 1997, the Kyoto Protocol. That was the first attempt to create a global, rules-based system. Now, let's talk about that first major global experiment. The Kyoto Protocol was totally revolutionary for its time. It was the first time nations actually agreed together on legally binding targets to cut their emissions. And the engine of the whole Kyoto market was something called the Clean Development Mechanism, or CDM. So think of it like this. A project in a developing country, let's say a new wind farm in India that's replacing an old coal plant, could generate these tradable credits. Then a developed country, maybe Germany, could buy those credits to help it meet its own target under Kyoto. Okay, this slide is super important because it really breaks down the two main ways to build a carbon market. On the left, you've got the baseline and credit system. That's what the CDM used. Basically, you figure out what emissions would have been without your project, and you earn credits for making things better. But on the right, you have cap and trade. That's where a government sets a hard limit, a cap, on total pollution, and then companies have to trade a limited number of permits to operate under that cap. But here's the thing. While all this official, UN-led stuff was happening, something else was bubbling up right alongside it. The private sector was not waiting around. And this became what we now call the voluntary carbon market, or VCM. This is where companies and even regular people could voluntarily pay for projects that cut emissions, all happening completely outside of any government rules like the Kyoto Protocol. So why did this thing take off? Well, a big reason was flexibility. Private groups could just move and innovate way faster than the UN. Plus, you had this huge new wave of companies making their own climate promises, which created a ton of demand. They wanted to invest in everything from cool new tech to saving rainforests, projects that often did a lot more good than just cutting carbon. And wow, this chart just says it all, doesn't it? I mean, just look at that explosion in activity, especially after 2017. The VCM went from this tiny niche idea to a major player in climate finance. It really shows you the incredible power of private sector demand when it gets going. All right, that brings us to 2015. And this was a massive turning point. The entire global playbook on climate policy was about to get a complete rewrite with the Paris Agreement. So remember, Kyoto was what we call top-down. A handful of wealthy countries were handed legally binding targets. This created this really rigid split between developed and developing nations, and in the end, it just struggled to get everyone on board. The Paris Agreement completely flipped that script. It went bottom up. Now, every single country, rich, poor, big, small, is responsible for setting and reporting its own climate action plan. We call these nationally determined contributions, or NDCs. The whole philosophy just shifted. Instead of forcing targets on countries, the new goal was to encourage everyone to work together voluntarily, to empower every nation to aim higher in a way that actually makes sense for them. So, if you've got this new bottom-up world, how do you build a new market rulebook for it? Well, that's exactly what Article 6 of the Paris Agreement is for. It's the part that lays out how countries can use markets to cooperate and hit their climate goals. Think of Article 6 as a new toolkit, right? It's got 3 key parts. First, there's Article 6.2, which lets countries trade emission reductions directly with each other. Then, Article 6.4 creates a brand new global market, kind of like an upgraded CDM. But the most important part, the foundation for all of it,
is a strict new rule. You absolutely have to avoid double counting, where two different countries try to claim the same exact emission reduction. And the key to stopping this is a concept called the corresponding adjustment. It's basically double entry bookkeeping for the planet. So if a solar farm in Ghana sells a 1-ton carbon credit to, say, Switzerland, then Ghana has to add 1 ton back to its national carbon count. Switzerland, on the other hand, gets to subtract that ton. It ensures that one reduction is only ever counted one time, period.
And that brings us pretty much up to today, where the whole landscape is more connected and, yeah, more complex than it's ever been. Those old lines between the voluntary market and the government compliance markets, they're really starting to blur. I mean, just look at this diagram. On one side, you've got all these different sources of demand. You have countries trying to meet their Paris Agreement targets, you've got the airline industry with its own rules, and of course, corporations are still making their own voluntary pledges. And on the other side, you've got all this supply coming from government programs, the VCM, and these new international mechanisms from the Paris Agreement. And, you know, this isn't just a bunch of ideas on paper anymore. As you can see on this map, these systems are real. They're up and running all over the world. From Colombia to Australia, from Canada to Japan, countries are actively building the infrastructure for this new era of carbon markets. So, when you step back, we've gone from this rigid top-down system for just a few rich countries to a flexible, global framework that's built on cooperation. The whole architecture has been redesigned. And that leaves us with the biggest question of all. The rules have evolved, for sure, but will the results? The planet is definitely waiting for that answer.